Let's start. Parshas Vayishlach. Okay, let's see different things that we can accomplish tonight. It says, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Lefonav. Yaakov sent Malachim. Malachim means angels. Rashi says they were real angels. Normally Malachim means messengers, but Rashi says that nobody wanted to go to Esau. Everybody was afraid. So the only ones he could use were the angels that had come down to meet him. He sent them to his brother to Esau. And he had a message. Ko samu la'adoni le'Esau. This is what you should tell my master Esau. Ko omer avdecha Yaakov. This is what your servant Yaakov says. Now remember, we said last week that the avos, we were going to make them more human. Instead of going to all the different midrashim, when there was a mistake made, we know it was a mistake because there was a consequence. So here, Yaakov refers to Esau as the master, and he refers to himself as the servant. Was that the right thing to do? Was it the right thing to humble himself before his brother? Or should he have simply said, it's your brother Yaakov? So the only way we have an answer is the consequence. Was there a consequence? The answer was yes. Esau had, for every time Yaakov called him master and himself servant, Esau had a king that ruled before Yaakov had a king. So there were like 7 or 10 kings, whatever it was, how many kings there were, Esau had before Yaakov. And at the end of the parsha, we tell Aluf this, Aluf that. We go through all the kings that Esau had. Of what relevance, I don't know. But it shows that Hashem was not happy that Yaakov did what he did. So the Avos did things that they thought were right, but in the end, we don't know if they were right. Avraham, he married Hagar. Did Hashem tell him to marry Hagar? No. Who suggested Hagar? Sarah. Hashem said to Avraham, be patient. Sarah is going to give you a child. He wasn't patient. Okay, so he married Hagar. Was it the right thing? I don't know. What was the consequence? She had a son. What was the name of that son? Ishmael. Who comes from Ishmael?
What?
Who comes from Ishmael? The Muslim world, the Arab world. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Could we have done without that?
Could.
I think so. Okay? So we see that the Avos made decisions, not necessarily because they had nevuah to do it. Hashem never told them to do it, nor did we don't even know if Avram ever asked Hashem, should I marry Hagar? And there was a consequence. There were consequences to all these decisions.
But Sarah gave permission, no?
What?
Sarah gave permission to get married.
Sarah is fine. Sarah is a human being. Sarah is not Hashem.
Consequence of хотение.
Нет, это случай.
Consequence means if you do something wrong, there's a punishment. There's something that happens. Okay. Anyway, Ko amar avdecha Yaakov im Lavan garti. For the last 20 years, I have been living with Lavan. So Rashi says, garti, it's a play on words. Garti is the gematria of 613, Taryag. Kolomar, im Lavan harosha garti, although I was living with Lavan the Rasha, Taryag mitzvah shamarti, I watched over the 613 mitzvahs. I didn't keep them all. He married 2 sisters. And many of the mitzvahs you can't keep. Bringing korbanot, you can't keep. I mean, of the 613, today maybe only 270 apply. We can't keep the rest. But I watched them, I learned about them, I studied them, so that's what's considered shamarti, I protected them. But then he adds on, he doesn't stop there. Then he says, V'lo lamadati mima'asov haroim. I did not learn from Lavan's bad ways. So the Chofetz Chaim, he says, is this really appropriate? Maybe Yaakov is bragging. He's saying, normally when you live in a community, you learn from the community. You come to the community on a certain level, but if the community is on a lower level, rarely does the community come up to your level. You usually go down to the level of the community. So Yaakov is saying, no, I just want you to know, for 20 years I lived with Lavan, and I did not learn his tricks. I did not learn to be a thief. I did not learn to be a liar. I did not learn to be a cheat. And I'm not sure if Asa bought that, because Asa's argument was, before you even met Lavan, you were a thief, you were a liar, and you were a cheat. We know that. This was not something you want to say to Asa. So the Chofetz Chaim was bothered by Yaakov's statement. What did it mean? It seems to imply that a certain arrogance, ga'ava, that maybe did or did not exist. So the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Ephraim brings down from the Chofetz Chaim that, very interesting, he says that there was a dry cleaning company that he deals with. And he asked the owner of the dry cleaning company, tomorrow is Thanksgiving, you're going to be closed. What are you going to do? So the guy says, I'm going to watch football. Okay. How many games of football are there? There are 3 different games. And my friend said, wow, 3 different games. Each game is about 3 hours. That's 9 hours of football. He says, I can't learn Gemara straight for 9 hours. And this guy's going to watch football for 9 hours. So he says, he felt bad. I wish I could be like him. Mm-hmm. That means Yaakov was saying that Lavan, when he cheated someone, did it with his whole heart, with enthusiasm. He mapped it out, he scouted it out, he checked it over, he made cheshbonos, he made plans. He says, I wish I could run my life that way. That means I didn't learn from his bad ways how to apply it to the Torah and be a better Jew. He says that was his regret. He says that there was a guy in the yeshiva, one of the workers, so he says to him, what are you going to do after your Thanksgiving dinner? He says, what do you mean? It's Black Friday. There are sales. You can get a 75-inch television for $100. Normally it's $150. He says, so how are you going to get that? He says, well, the store opens up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to stand in line from 9 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. So he says, you're going to stand in line for 8 hours in the cold to save $50. He says, yeah. He says, I don't remember ever standing in line outside the yeshiva for the yeshiva to open for 8 hours. I don't remember going to the yeshiva at 9 o'clock the day before the Zman began to be the first one in there for Shacharit.
Don't sleep.
Don't sleep for 8 hours or 9 hours. So he says, he felt bad. He says, Lola Mati, I did not learn in Masov Haroim. That means it's probably, there are things we can learn. There are things we can learn from people who are doing things that we may not like, but there are things maybe that we can learn. He says that Rav Gifter was once collecting money, and every time he went to this person's house, he was never home. Where was he in the business? He says, here's a guy who works 24/7. He says, I don't learn 24/7, and I don't collect money 24/7. He says, for business, this guy is so dedicated. I wish I could be as dedicated. So it's unusual. It's unusual that it has that way. Yaakov was known for building matzevot. Matzevot means a monument. He put a matzevah on Kever Rachel. He put a matzevah when he anointed the stone. Here he put a matzevah, which is unusual because later on the Torah says Hashem does not like matzevot. And once they came into Israel, they were not allowed to build these one-stone edifices, these buildings. But he says that people work very hard on their reputation. And a matzevah, you can engrave a person's name and it can stand forever. So he says it's so interesting how the matzevah that we have, sometimes lasts forever, and at the same time, people work forever to accomplish what they want to accomplish. Listen to this story. Interesting lesson from this story. Listen to this story. It says in 1900, which was 118 years ago, there were over 50,000 horses in the city of London. Some of the horses people rode on. That's how they got around from place to place. Some of the horses were attached to chariots, to wagons, and that's how they moved products, fruits, vegetables, etc. The problem was, the city council had a meeting, and because there were so many horses, all over the streets were large amounts of manure. Because horses do their business wherever they want to.
Smell bad.
And this manure, besides smelling bad, attracted flies
Oh,
and spread typhoid fever and other diseases.
yeah, infection.
When they began to inquire around the world how other cities deal with this, they found out that in New York, the problem was worse because they had over 100,000 horses. And as they began to discover all these cities having this problem, the newspapers wrote an article, "The Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894. It was a crisis. It came up that they predicted that if this continues, in 50 years, the streets of London will be covered with 9 feet of manure.
Wow.
They made a cheshbon, they made an account. So they had an international meeting of all the leaders of the different cities across the world. In 1898, at the first World's International Urban Planning Conference in New York, they sat for days trying to figure out a solution for this problem. And they couldn't find one. It's not like you could take the horse outside the city, let the horse go to the bathroom, and then bring the horse back. It wasn't as if they could put little bags underneath the horse to catch it. They didn't have a solution.
They used to do the bags, no?
I don't know. It says that in 1898, they were so panicked that they were going to be under 10 feet of manure in 50 years that they didn't know what to do. They were panicked. It was a crisis. But in 1912, the crisis solved itself because Henry Ford invented the first car. And the crisis disappeared. The Great Horse Crisis of 1894 serves as a lesson that people should never despair. They should never give up hope. Often, necessity is the mother of all invention. We, today, we worry about global warming, we worry about a lot of different things. Because we are using today's knowledge and we're projecting that in the next 50 or 100 years, our today's knowledge will be the same. But that's not the case, right? In the next 50, 100 years, we may have cars that are electric. We may have cars that fly. We may have half the population living on Mars or Jupiter. We may find a machine that will clean the air and reset the ecology. You know, I'm not saying Donald Trump is right with coal or not coal. It's always hitting the newspapers. But it seems that in every generation, since the beginning of time, there's always been a crisis. Something that put us in panic mode. Something that says if we don't solve it, we're going to be in trouble. And yet, somehow, science has solved the problems, that we have not been able to solve. So it gives us something to think about, in everything that happens. Okay. Let's continue our approach that the Ovos, the Imahos, the patriarchs, the matriarchs, have a human side to them. In this week's Parsha, we have a pasuk that is extremely troublesome. Okay? Perek Lamed Hey, pasuk Chof Beis. Okay? Let's catch you up historically. There are a lot of things that happened in this week's Parsha that Yaakov meets Esau. Before he meets Esau, he has a battle, which we'll talk about later, with the angel of Esau. Yaakov and Esau meet, and they hug each other, they kiss each other. So the Esau that was going to hunt down and murder Yaakov seems to disappear. Okay. Yaakov introduces his 4 wives and all the children. One child he doesn't introduce to Esau. Dinah. Where is Dinah? In a box. Rashi says that not only was she in a box, but he locked the box. That means if she wanted to get out, she couldn't get out. And if Esau wanted to open the box to see what was inside, couldn't see inside. So he not only put her in the box, he locked the box. Okay. Again, comes the question, was that the right thing or the wrong thing?
One way yes, one way no.
On one hand, we see that Dinah later on is taken by Shechem. Rashi says, a punishment. Why? Yaakov should have given her to Esau. She might have turned Esau around. Okay, what did Dinah do wrong? If that's the case, she was in the box. It's not her fault. But she went out. She was she was more of a boy than a girl. That's what the Alshich says, because her body was changed by the switched. We talked about that last year. So she went out, and as a consequence, Shechem took her. If you were Yaakov, or any father, and someone suggested a boy for your daughter who's a known gangster, and you said, no, thank you, are you wrong? No, you're not wrong for that. Why would you want a gangster as a son-in-law? And Esau was a gangster.
Yeah.
Although we never see that in the Torah, but again, it creates a problem. At any rate, after this whole story with Dinah and Leah and Shechem, and the brothers kill out the city of Shechem, Rachel gives birth to son number 12, Binyamin, and the delivery goes bad. And she dies in delivery, and he buries her on the road by Beis Lechem, Matzeves, Kvuras Rachel Aliyah Mazer. Okay. Now, we assume that Yaakov had 4 wives, so he had 4 houses or 4 tents. And in each tent, I guess, either he had a bed, or he had one bed, but the bed was in Rachel's tent. Rachel was gone. So now, he moves his bed out of Rachel's tent into whose tent?
Leah's.
No,
No,
into Bilhah.
Oh, Bill.
Bilhah. So what does the Torah say? So the Torah says, Vayihi bishkon Yisrael ba'aretz ahi. When Yaakov was settling in that land in Sukkot near Shechem, Vayelech Reuven went, Vayishkav es Bilo Pilegesh Aviv.
change it.
The pasuk says, and Reuven had sexual relations with Bilhah, his father's wife. Vayishma Yisrael, Yaakov heard. Then there's a break, there's a pay. The end of the line is left blank. And the next line starts, Vayhi b'nei Yaakov shnei masor, Yaakov's children were 12. And it goes through all 12 children. Okay. So, the literal, Rashi says a different shot, the Gemara goes to a different shot. But the literal words of the Torah, if you were not a scholar, if you did not read Rashi, you just had an English translation, what did it say? It says Reuven had relations with his father's wife, which is unthinkable, which is crazy stuff, which is wild. And was he right or was he wrong? There was a consequence. We know that he lost the right to become the firstborn. So the Gemara steps in over here. There's a lot of different Gemaras. First is the Gemara Megillah. The Gemara Megillah says that in the olden days, when they used to read the Torah on Shabbos morning, they had the Baal Koreh read. Next to the Baal Koreh was a fellow who translated the psukim into Aramaic or English or whatever the language was. It's fascinating. You don't have that today. We don't have that today. When you have someone reading the Torah, there's nobody standing next to them translating the psukim. But in the olden days, when everybody didn't have books, so they didn't understand Hebrew, so there was a translator. So the Gemara says, this pasuk, you would read it in the Torah, but the translator didn't translate. Because what are you going to do? You're going to translate to hundreds of people who are they're not Talmidei Chachamim. And Reuven had relations with Bilhah. They would go crazy. They would say, hey, what's going on over here? Okay? They would want the rabbi to give a speech. So it says that the Gemara Megillah says, Maaseh Reuven Nikra, the story of Reuven, we read it, we don't skip it, but v'lo mitargem, but we don't translate it. Okay? So we're not allowed to teach you about it, as if you never heard it. Next.
So who's allowed to learn?
People who know the Gemara. That's a Gemara in Megillah. The Gemara in Shabbos says, Omer Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, Omer Rav Yonasan, Kol Omer Reuven Chota Ein Ela Toeh. Whoever says Reuven sinned, making a big mistake. So they jumped down his throat. But it says in the Torah that he slept with Yaakov's wife. So he says, no. He didn't sleep with her. He just took out the bed. That means Yaakov put the bed in Bilhah's tent. And he went in, and not telling anyone, he folded up the bed and carried it to his mother's tent, to Leah's tent. Okay. Why did he do that? Because he felt that if Rachel was his main wife, we got that. But if Rachel died, who should now be wife one? Leah. Okay, so why did Yaakov do that? Why did Yaakov take the bed and put it? No.
Yaakov.
Why did Yaakov, after Rachel died, take the bed and put it by Bilhah? He understood. He was as smart as Reuven. Why did he do that? The short answer is that Rachel just had a baby. The baby is a few days old. Rachel died. Who's taking care of the baby? Bilhah. So, I'm the father. I have to help. Bilhah should get up every night in the middle of the night to feed the baby 3 times and try for the baby. I mean, I appreciate her help, but I'm still the father. I should be there to help. She doesn't have to get out of bed every time. I can bring the baby to her. She's not the mother. It's common sense. Reuven couldn't figure that out. Maybe what Reuven should have done is before he started moving around the furniture, he should have gone to his father. And he should have said to his father, Dad, why did you do that? If Yaakov would have explained himself, maybe he would have understood. I'll give you an example, okay? I have many times guests in my home. I have a large home in Kew Gardens. Whenever there's a simcha, bar mitzvah, wedding, sheva bracha, people book rooms, okay? Neighbors for their children or grandchildren or whatever it is. I once had a couple come stay by us. We put them in one of the rooms. They didn't like the way the room was set up. They moved the beds from this wall to this wall, they moved the furniture, they moved everything around. We were shocked.
Without permission.
Well, all of a sudden we hear all this noise, and then when they leave, we peek into the room and find that everything was turned around.
Without permission?
Without permission.
No good.
We were shocked,
Was it this portion?
I don't know if it was this partial, but we couldn't believe it, They didn't like where the nightstand was, they didn't like where the cloud, whatever it was. I understand, but you're a guest for 24 hours, you're here for one day.
For free or they pay for it?
What?
It's for free, right?
It's for free. You're a guest in our home, I got it, It doesn't make any sense, it doesn't. And if they didn't like the paint on the wall, they would have painted the whole room green or blue or black or whatever it was, I don't know.
Very good chance.
You understand? It doesn't make sense. So Yaakov wasn't foolish. He wasn't a senile old man. So Reuven goes ahead and does it. So that's what the Gemara says. Reuven didn't actually, God forbid, sleep with her. But what Reuven did was he moved around the beds. Okay. But the Pasuk says that the children of Yaakov were 12 because they were all considered one. Okay. Now, there's a chidah. The chidah is a fascinating chidah. The chidah brings down two opinions, two meforshim. One is the Ramah, who was the author of the Shulchan Aruch, which is fascinating because the Ramah never wrote a book on the Chumash. But he said this one thing, the Chidah quotes him. And the next one is from someone named Rabbeinu Ephraim. And he also quotes the Chidushei HaGershuni. Listen what the Chidah writes. Shomati mirav Godol Ashkenazi. I heard from a great Ashkenazi rabbi. And his name is the Rav Haramah, the Ramah, Rav Moshe Israelish. Baal Hamapo. He calls him the tablecloth. Now that's a fascinating name. Why does the Chidah refer to the Ramah as the tablecloth? Because Rabbi Yosef Cairo wrote the Shulchan Aruch, the table, and the Ramah wrote notes. So when you want to make the table nicer, what's the first thing you put on the table?
Tablecloth.
A tablecloth. So the Chidah calls the Ramah the tablecloth. Now that's fascinating. You know, when we give people nicknames, it's always derogatory, negative names. He calls him the Baal Hamapa, the owner of the tablecloth. That he says as follows. Yaakov moved his bed into Bilhah's tent because he wanted to have relations with Bilhah. And there's a whole medrash why. The medrash says that Yaakov saw b'nevuah that Rachel was supposed to have more children than she had. She only had 2. She was supposed to have 4. And when she died, Yaakov was told, tonight is the last night, the last window to have 2 more children. Bilhah will represent Rachel. So he went, because he was supposed to have 2 more children. What? 14
kids.
What happened was, Reuven was jealous. So Reuven went for a walk outside the tent of Bilhah, singing and making noise.
Without permission.
Without permission.
How he did it?
He did it outside the tent. And we know to have relations with your wife when there's someone right outside the door lacks tzniut. It's not tzniut. V'osher l'shamish, you cannot have relations, v'od sheyesh b'nei odom shomim, when people could hear you. Therefore, Yaakov heard that Reuven was walking outside,
Making noise.
so therefore he didn't have relations with Bilhah, and therefore the children were not born. So what happened to those children? Since that window was closed, it opened again for Yosef. And Yosef had 2 children, Ephraim and Manasseh. And they became Shvatim. And Yaakov says, you know why we have Ephraim and Manasseh? Ki Reuven v'Shimon, because of Reuven, what he did. He didn't let me have it this way, so they were born this way. Then the Ramah says, let me tell you how you're supposed to read the pasuk. It says, Vayihi bishkon Yisrael ba'aretz hahi. As was as Yaakov settled in the land and moved his bed into Bilhah's tent, Vayelech Reuven. Reuven went for a walk outside the tent making noise. Vayishkav as Bilhah. Yaakov wanted to have relations with Bilhah. Pelegish, his wife. But Reuven kept saying, Aviv, Dad, where are you? What's going on, Dad? Vayishma Yisrael, and when Yisrael heard that his son was outside the door, he didn't have relations. Therefore, the children of Yaakov were only 12, not 14. Then the Chidah says that when the Ramah said this, Reuven was so impressed that he appeared to the Ramah in a dream and kissed him on his forehead.
Он его оправдал.
Рувен пришел в сон Рама,
Да.
поцеловался.
Рамо оправдал.
Because the Ramah was Melamed Zchut.
Его
No,
комментарий, то, что-
no, no, no.
его комментарий, то, что он дал, он его оправдал. Об этом никто не знал. Он
Да.
говорит, как это
So
правильно читается.
she said Ramo оправдал как?
Reuven kissed the Ramah on the forehead.
He approved the Reuven
It-
with his speech?
Yes.
I mean, his
Рамо
explanation?
He showed that he explained the psukim where Reuven was not guilty of having relations with Bilhah. And Reuven says that's exactly what happened. People don't read the psukim correctly, and they blame me for something I didn't do.
So he made him not guilty.
Right, and therefore he gave him a kiss. Then the Chidah brings down, he said he saw in the Sefer Chidushei HaGershuni a different opinion by Rabbeinu Ephraim. Rabbeinu Ephraim says, and he reads the pasuk as follows. He says, when Reuven heard that his father moved his bed into Bilhah's tent, he was so angry, he packed his suitcase and he ran away from home. He ran away. He said, I don't want to be part of a family like this. If my father, I understand he lost his wife, but if he could be so disrespectful to my mother, I'm moving out. I'm not interested in being part of the family. And when Yaakov heard this, he stopped, did not go with Bilhah, and he ran after Reuven to bring him back. And he reads the pasuk as follows: Vayhi bishkon Yisrael ba'aretz. When Yaakov settled himself in this country, and he moved his bed into Bilhah's tent, Vayidei Reuven. Reuven ran away. And when Yaakov says, "Why are you running away?" He says, "Vayishkav es Bilhah pilegesh aviv." You want to go have relations with Bilhah, your wife? I think that's wrong. I don't want to be part of the family. Vayishma Yisrael. When Yaakov heard this, he felt bad and ran after him to bring him back. And therefore, the children of Yaakov were 12. And it says, "V'shomati she'achosi dorash zebarabim." The Rabbeinu Ephraim said this publicly. Ubo elo Reuven b'chalom, and Reuven came to him in a dream. V'noshko al rosho, and kissed him on the forehead. Also, ad kan l'shalom. Hey, listen, this Chidah, he wrote a lot of svarim. He has fascinating stuff. Man. He could be an Ashkenazi, even this guy. I mean, the Chidah, you don't need my approval for the Chidah. The Chidah, it's fascinating what the Chidah has to say. But the Chidah,
What years he lived?
the Chidah, what years?
1700.
1700, yeah, because he right at the same time as the Vilna Gaon.
Baal Shem
Baal Shem, the Vilna Gaon.
200 years ago?
Yeah, I have at home, I bought a 5-volume set, Kol Chidush HaChidah. He wrote 60 books. This one, he has over here Pnei David. I guess there was one of his books was Pnei David. What I have is just taken from all different books of the Chidah. I don't have every book the Chidah wrote. Chidah wrote, I have the Ben Ish Chai, I have a lot of these. They're fascinating, what they have to say. The Rambam is, the Rambam writes in Hilchos Sota. Listen what the Rambam writes in
Nachmani.
Hilchos. What?
Nachmani.
No, Rambam.
Rama.
My man.
Moshe ben Maimon.
Mama.
No, the Ashkenazi posik. The Rambam writes that when a Sota woman, when her husband accused her of having an affair, so before she would drink the water, the Kohen would sit her down and he would say to her in a very soft tone, he would say to her, listen, I don't know if you're innocent or guilty. But if you made a mistake, just confess, just admit it, and we'll put away the water. You don't have to die for a mistake. Okay? I understand. Sometimes husbands are abusive. Sometimes husbands don't treat you right. Sometimes you're not in love with your husband and you get involved with somebody else. I understand all that. But you don't have to die. Just admit it. And then the Rambam says, the Kohen says to her, people greater than you made mistakes and admitted it. And were forgiven. Yehuda had relations with a woman he thought was a zona, was a prostitute. And she became pregnant. And he was judging her. And then he realized the truth. He could have kept quiet, she would have been killed. But what did Yehuda do? He admitted it. You would think, here the great Yehuda had a sexual relationship with a prostitute. Imagine if you heard one of the chief rabbis or one of the Gedolei Yisrael was caught with a prostitute. What would happen to his career?
That's it.
It would be over. And Yehuda became king of Israel, Melech Yisrael. You know, David HaMelech comes from Yehuda. Shevet Yehuda got one of the biggest portions in Israel. Why? Because he came clean. He didn't deny it. He owned it. He says, I did it. I'm sorry. Move on. Then the Rambam says, we say to her, look at Reuven. The Torah says he had relations with his father's wife. Could anything be worse? No. But he admitted it. He did teshuvah. And that was it. Reuven was part of the 12 Shvatim and he was involved in everything. So, don't die for something you did. Just say you're sorry. Let me know the truth. I'll take care of it. That's what the Rambam writes. The Kohen would say to this woman. So the Rambam says that he describes Reuven's sin as the Torah does. Even though we just said from the Gemara and everything else that Reuven didn't do anything terrible, he just mixed around the beds and stuff like that, but the Torah does not say that. The Torah says, and Reuven did something. And the Rambam says when a woman is about to drink and risk her life, we don't sugarcoat it. We go according to what the Torah says straight. So it's a fascinating Rambam, you know, that we don't change things around and we don't sugarcoat it. We don't say this is the Gemara's interpretation. We bring it down just the way it is. Okay? So it's very, very interesting. And the whole Gemara goes over here. I have the Gemara Shabbos, I photocopied it over here. You know, he talks about mixing up the beds, but not everybody agrees to that. You have over here that Rabbi Yoshua and other people, they actually say that he had a relations with his father's wife. They don't all agree. It's not as simple as we would like to think. Okay, it's 10 after 9. I want to go through a little bit something else, and then I'm going to share with you something about Hanukkah. Hanukkah's coming up. Let me give you some...
Sunday night.
Yes, Sunday night. Don't forget to light your candles.
Monday night you will be sick.
I think so. We're late enough, so, you know, by the time I come at 8:30...
Oil, no.
Ideally oil. And it's interesting, you should just be aware, that the oil that they sell in the store for lighting is not the best oil. It's just regular oil. Some people, as hidur, as a chumrah, buy fine virgin oil. They buy the real good quality oil. Because in the Beit HaMikdash, the oil used for the menorah was the best.
Yeah.
Right? So when you buy oil for lighting, usually it's a low-grade oil. But what you should buy for Hanukkah candles is not the low-grade oil. You should go buy regular olive oil that they sell in the store that's good for cooking and eating, because that's a higher grade oil, okay?
Virgin oil?
Чисто да, надо брать дорогое.
Call it like virgin oil?
Right. It's a higher grade oil.
How about the special box they have already all inside?
Okay, those oils are good also. Yeah, those are pure oils, those are clear oils. Now, again, you only have to have the candle burn for, the oil burn for half an hour. So after you burn for half an hour, you can blow it out. So you don't have to let it burn till, you can blow it out and then next night light it again for another half hour. The only time you can't blow it out is Friday night, right? But let's be careful. That means, let's say Friday night, you light the oil. So I fill up the oil. Sometimes when I do my Shabbos candles, I have oil, but I only use half the thing oil and the rest is water. So it burns for 3 or 4 hours. I don't let it burn for 8 hours because it could crack. And if you remember last year, there was this horrible fire because someone lit the menorah and it was burning with big oil, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, the glass cracked and the oil caused the fire. 8 children or people died, right? 8 people died. So you have to use common sense. That means as long as you're up, that's fine. You want to let the menorah burn. But if you go to sleep, you should blow out the candles. The only thing you can't do that is Friday night. But on Friday night, if you don't fill up the oil like this, where it's going to burn for 8 hours, you can, the top can be oil and the bottom can be water. It'll burn for 4 hours or 3 hours. It doesn't have to burn more than that. You have to light it from before sunset till afterwards, okay? When the candles are lit, we don't use the candles for personal use. We put the candles by the window so people can see. Some people put it by the door. The mezuzah's on one side and the candles are on the other side, okay? And then, there's a minute to give Hanukkah gelt or Hanukkah gifts, whatever your custom is.
No candle, only oil.
You could use candles. That means we use oil. But my grandchildren, you see, Ashkenazim are different in the Bukharian family, only one person lights, right?
Yes.
By us, everybody lights. So if my children come, I light, my son lights, each one of my grandchildren lights. So there's 15 menorahs. So for the grandchildren, they'll use candles maybe. But we all light. So for example, if I have, growing up, when I had 5 children, we had 6 menorahs. Okay, so it creates a lot of lights, a lot of fire, a lot of heat. So we got to be careful. We have a table, and we put silver foil on the table. We have to be careful because you're using fire. So you should just be aware of that. Okay, let's go a little bit, and then I'll tell you one more thing. I'll tell you something interesting, but let's go. Just some background information. Reuven. I did some research in the Miyam Loez. Reuven was born on the 14th day of Kislev. What's today's Hebrew date? 19 Kislev?
Yeah,
Okay. So Reuven didn't even have his bris yet. He was born in the year 2193, November 15th, 1569 BCE. Okay? So that was Reuven. Look at the difference between my son. He had a whole speech over there. Shimon was born on the 28th day of Teves, a year later, January 26th. Levi, you ready? Was born on Pesach, 16 days of Nisan. Pesach starts on the 15th of Nisan. Levi was born on the 16th day of Nisan. She was very happy.
My daughter.
My daughter was born on 16 December.
Okay, she was very happy because she said that I can hold one baby in this hand and one baby in this hand, but the third baby, my husband has to come join me, take care of it. Okay. And then Yehuda, that was Levi, Yehuda was born in June, the 15th day of Sivan, June 17th. Dan, very interesting, Dan means to judge. He was born on the 9th day of Elul. Elul is a month of judgment.
Yep.
Naphtali was born on the 5th day of Tishrei, right after Rosh Hashanah, right before Yom Kippur. That's when Naphtali was born.
September, October.
Yep. God was born on the 10th day of Mar Cheshvan, October 28th. Osher was born in March, the 20th day of Adar. Yisachar was born on the 10th day of Av, the day after Tisha B'Av, July 19th. Zvulun was born on the 7th of Tishrei, October 2nd. Yosef, very interesting. Yosef was born on Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. In the summer, June 30th. And Binyamin was born on the 11th day of Mar Cheshvan, which is Rachel's Yortzeit, because she died. So that was November 7th. That means Binyamin was born when Yaakov was 100 years old. And he says over here, only 2 months are not represented. So far, no one was born in Shvat, and no one was born in Iyar.
Yeah.
And Menashe was born in Iyar, and Ephraim was born in Shvat.
So nice.
So,
They cover
all 12 months.
all 12 months.
All 12
And there's a Sefer, B'nai Yisachar, and he goes through every month, and he tells you which child was born in that month, and how that influenced the month, and how the month influenced the child. So he has a whole thing over there as to what each one was, and how each one affected the other. So, okay? The last thing for tonight. We talked about this, I think, previous years, but let's go again. Okay? Chanukah and Purim are midrabanan. That means all the Chagim, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot, is in the Torah. Chanukah and Purim are rabbinical. They're from the Chachamim. They, the Midrashim say, help strengthen Jews in Galut. Megillat Esther took place when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, and they were in Babylon. So it's a story that helps us get through the night called Galut. Hanukkah took place during the second Beis HaMikdash, but the Greeks were in the country, and then the Romans followed. So it also helps us in dealing with the pain of occupation, when you don't have your own country. The Medrash says that when the angel of Esav wanted to hurt Yaakov, he hurt him by trying to destroy Hanukkah and Purim. Why? Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zonenfeld says, Vayiga, he touched him on his thigh, he touched him. Vayiga is Gematria 89, the same Gematria as Hanukkah. Bless you. Kaf Yerecho, his thigh, is Gematria 336, the same Gematria as Purim. So he touched him on his thigh, which is the Gid HaNosha, and dislocated his thigh, represents Hanukkah and Purim. They are called the pillars of the Torah. That means they are the two pillars that supports the Torah. Now that's mystical. People don't understand what it is. But Rabbi Victor Miller had something fascinating to say. Listen to what he said. He said, on Purim, we read the Megillat Esther. Okay? How many books are there in Tanakh? There are 24 books. Is Megillat Esther one of the 24? Yes. There are 5 Megillot. Megillat Rus, Megillat Esther, Megillat Eicha, Shir HaShirim, and Kohelet. There are 5 Megillot. Esther we read, we even make a bracha on it before we read it. Okay. There was a Megillah called Megillat Chashmonaim, or some people call it Megillat Antiochus. You can read it. It's in some of the Sidurim. I have Sidurim at home that have this Megillah. Rabbi Miller brings down that the Chachamim came and said, do not read this Megillah in shul. We'll find out why. There were some shuls that read it. Do not. Do not consider it part of Tanakh. It is not. What is strange, he says, is that in the New Testament, the Christians put it in and calls it the Book of the Maccabees. If you look at a New Testament and you go through the New Testament, one of the sections is called the Book of the Maccabees. He says, why did they do
It's
that?
probably incomplete.
I don't know if it's incomplete. Why did they do that? That's what Rabbi Miller asked. Why did they do that? He gives a fascinating answer. He says, Megillat Esther, the reason why it's part of Tanakh was because Mordechai and Esther were Nevi'im. Who was the Navi that took over after them? Ezra. And the Gemara says, Ezra is Malachi. Malachi was the last Navi. So after the story of Purim, Nevuah came to an end. For the next 400 years, till the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, there was no Nevuah. Now, your Christianity, you want the world to believe that 400 years later, there was a Navi called Yeshu, Christ. What happened? God went to sleep for 400 years? So they're claiming, oh, the Jews always had Nevuah. The biggest proof? Megillat Antiochus, Megillat Chashmonaim. It's one of the Megillot. So the rabbis came and says, no. If there's no Megillat Chashmonaim, means there's no Nevuah. If there's no Nevuah, all these new religions, the Mormons, the Christians, the Islamic, who all claim to have prophets, are all fake. So he said they were very careful not to include it. He says that's why Hanukkah is on the 25th of Kislev. There are 24 books in the Torah, not 25. Then he said, he brings down from, I'm not sure from where, maybe it's the Chidah again. He says, you know what Hanukkah stands for? The Chet stands for 8, the Nun for Nevi'im. There are 8 Navi. Vav, Chof. There are 6,